Okay, Shirley. Go for a walk.
Today is March 8th, 2005. This is the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress of the United States in partnership with the Historical Society of Leisure World, Laguna Woods, California. This interview is being taped by the Video Club in their video lab in Leisure World. Our guest is Leonard Bergstein, born March 3rd, 1930, and he was in the Air Force. He's being interviewed by Carly Lutzow. Well, welcome, Leonard. I'm glad you could come today and tell us about your experiences. Where were you born?
Born in New York City.
Okay, and what did you live there?
I lived there till I was about 11.
Uh-huh.
And then my father had a job opportunity in California, and we moved to Los Angeles.
Goodness, you're practically a native then.
That's right.
What was your family like?
My family was close-knit. We were very small. We didn't have relatives and cousins, especially when I moved out to California in 1940. This was barren.
Oh, I guess.
Where we are right now didn't even exist. It was probably maybe orange trees.
I wouldn't be surprised. Where did you live in California?
Right outside of Beverly Hills, La Cienega Boulevard, right off the strip.
Oh, well,
My father worked for Adrian, the dress designer.
Did you go to school here then?
I went to school up to the semester, the sophomore semester in high school. And then we went back to New York.
Oh, then you went back to New York. And your family all went back to New York to live? Your dad's
Yes.
work took him there?
That's correct.
Where did you live in New York then?
We lived in Queens, and I was graduate high school. But if you live in New York and do not have Regents credits, it's very difficult to get into a college.
Oh, really?
So it was almost impossible for me to get into college.
Uh-huh.
So I loved airplanes, built model airplanes, and had it in my blood. I had to fly.
You made model airplanes as a young person?
Yes.
And you wanted to fly very badly.
Very badly.
So when you went in service, were you drafted or did you volunteer?
My father and my mother, it was terrible, the thought of just going into the military. When the Korean War broke out, I got a notification I was 1A. At the time, I was going to Academy of Aeronautics, which is an aviation school at LaGuardia Field.
Oh, very good.
And I had another year and a half to go, and they thought my service commitment was more important than my schooling.
I see.
So I got a letter from, I was in 1A.
Uh-huh.
I ran down as quick as I could and joined the Air Force.
Well, when you went in the Air Force, did you leave from New York City? Were you inducted in New York City?
I was inducted in New York City.
And then where did you go for boot camp?
Well, I didn't go to boot camp.
Oh, what did you do?
When I enlisted to go into cadets.
Uh-huh.
And a chance to fly. And they marked a thing that I was awaiting class. The Air Force was breaking away from the Army at the time. It was very difficult. And I had been accepted for cadets, but I had to wait for class.
Right.
So
Okay.
when I went down to the enlistment office and I showed them my thing that I had already joined the Air Force, they took me in, and I was, my orders said that I could not be sent to any kind of schooling because I was awaiting cadets.
Yes.
So it took about 6 months, and I had every kind of job. I worked in the air maintenance and everything else, working as a draftsman.
No, this is in the Army?
Air Force.
In the Air Force, okay.
Right, waiting for school.
Waiting for school, for cadet school.
Finally, I got a class. I went to Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas for pilot training.
Okay. And how long did that take?
About 5 months. And then they decided I'd be a very good pilot in civilian life, but I was too uptight to be a military pilot.
Is that right?
but my grades and everything in the cadets were good, so I went like a lot of other people did. I flew as a navigator.
You flew as a navigator,
So I had to
okay,
go back to school again in cadets,
for navigation.
navigation.
And was that also at the same place or another?
No,
another
that
base?
was, the navigation place was at Ellington Air Force Base
Which is where?
in Houston, Texas.
Okay, so you stayed in Texas. And when you
And I went-
finished that?
I went for radar
Okay.
because there were a need for radar operators.
Uh-huh,
And I went, that was at Waco, Connolly Air Force Base,
uh-huh.
and that's where I graduated, got my wings and my commission.
All right, then now you're commissioned and you're a navigator. What happened next? And the
I was-
Korean War is on, right?
The Korean War was on, that's
Yes.
right. And they needed B-29s, and I went to, trying to remember the school.
Well.
But I went for B-29 training
Yes,
at Offutt. I'm sorry, I'm getting this all
that's
mixed up.
okay. Doesn't matter. You went for B-29 training and
That's
then...
why you have
Yeah,
your notes.
I got your notes. When you went for B-29 training, how long were you in training for that?
I was in Forbes Air Force Base at that time, Topeka, Kansas, where they were putting the people be trained for B-29s.
Uh-huh.
After I got out of Forbes, I went to Lackland, which was, I need to know.
Lackland, is that Florida?
No, Lackland is in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
And the
Then you've had the training now for the B-29s, and you've gone to different
yeah,
bases.
I was
and,
going to be on combat crew training.
and did you finish the combat crew training, and then did they put you on did you go overseas?
Yes,
Uh-huh. Where did you go?
I went to Okinawa. I was attached to the 19th Bomb Group, 93rd Bomb Squadron,
Uh-huh.
and we flew over Korea.
Well, was that pretty exciting, or was it pretty routine?
Well, the exciting part was the aircraft.
The aircraft itself?
The aircraft that they sent us to fly was so combat weary that after laying for, let's see, I have to tell you about the airplane.
Oh, please do.
Okay. The airplane was sent back when I was 14 years old in 1944.
Uh-huh.
It was being shot up over Japan. Instead of dismantling it, they put it together again in Biggs Air Force Base and let it rust for 7 years, from 1944 to 1951. They peeled off the plastic and let us fly it to Okinawa. So most of the excitement in the air thing was trouble with the aircraft.
Yes, I can imagine.
The B-29 is a high-altitude plane, but there were so many leaks from bullet holes that they couldn't find that there was no pressurization. We couldn't get up very high.
Oh. So then what happened? Did they work on the planes?
No, we flew them that way.
You flew them that way?
Right. We flew them up, let's see, most of the missions were in far North Korea,
Uh-huh.
and it was very, very cold. With no heating systems in it, it was pretty horrible.
The airplane had no heating system?
Well, they didn't function.
They didn't function, okay. And in Korea, where were you stationed
I
to
was
fly?
stationed on Okinawa.
Oh, you were stationed on Okinawa and flew over North
A
Korea.
bombing mission was 6.5 hours each way,
Oh, my goodness.
because we flew from Okinawa, Kadena Air Force Base,
Uh-huh.
all the way up to the combat was along the Yalu River, which was the dividing line between North Korea and China. And then to fly all the way back again to Okinawa.
Oh, and you had fuel enough for that?
Oh, yes.
Yes, the plane could do that.
In fact, the crewmen, before the mission, used to run out, and they would count how many bombs were in the bomb bay. If they had 40 bombs in there, it was going to be an easy run. But if they had to go all the way up to the Yalu River, they had to take a couple of bombs off to put some more fuel on the aircraft.
So you would carry 40 bombs, huh?
4,500 pounders, yeah, 20,000 pounds.
Well, as a navigator, were you finding that you had a big responsibility on the plane? Getting
Well,
them there and back?
The bombs were dropped electronically.
Okay.
There was a device called SHORAN, short-range navigation. It was a surveying device that was used on the B-29s we flew. It was much more accurate. Radar was very poor accuracy, but the SHORAN was very accurate.
So that when you get over your target, you electronically drop the bombs?
Electronically drop the bomb. You didn't even have to know the target because the scope that you used was all prefigured.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I don't know how much of this I could tell, so.
Tell all you want. Tell all you want. Yeah, that's very interesting. Go ahead. And I'm getting into your missions now,
Yeah.
and tell us a little more about it.
Well.
You got over the scope took care of the bombs?
The bombing of the targets up along the Yalu River were right where the dividing line was.
Uh-huh.
We were told not to go by any means into
China.
communist China
Yes.
because of a treaty we had with them. And in all of China, there was only 3 targets, 3 big hydroelectric plants right on the other side of the Yalu River. We could reach them from Okinawa, but we weren't allowed because that's the treaty. They could come up from the other side of the Yalu River and shoot us with their MiGs, but we couldn't go and bomb at them. So,
Well, that must have been kind of
it was
terrifying.
wonderful. Mr. Truman was president.
Were you bombed? Were the MiGs following your plane quite often?
Well, the MiGs that they used were the MiG-15, and they didn't have any devices on it that they could do radar. So we flew at night with the B-29s.
So you didn't they didn't bother you?
No, we could see their engines, the red glow from their engines as they came past, but they couldn't see us.
Oh, for
So it was pretty good. But the Chinese stayed out of the war because we bombed those hydroelectric plants, all of Manchuria would have gone black. So anyway, the Marines were in there. Was a real bad snow. It was terrible snow. It was the first, I think it was the 1st Marine Division was up there in the 29th or 24th Infantry Division. So we were mostly protecting them.
Uh-huh.
That was when MacArthur got recalled.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm saying now is my feelings.
Look, that's
Right.
fine.
Okay. We weren't allowed to fly across, and MacArthur was so worried about his troops that he couldn't supply. The ground was covered with snow and slush. They couldn't even bring any trucks in there. So the B-29s used to drop supplies.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, MacArthur was worried about things, and he made a statement that if the Chinese come into the war, he would turn the bombers loose.
Oh.
He was recalled by Truman,
Uh-huh.
which was not the way to do it. I mean, if as an executive later on in my life, if I had a problem with a subordinate, I'd call him in my office, see why he said what he did, and either censure him and make him reverse the decision, but not to fire somebody the stature of MacArthur. Right? And they called it back, and Truman sat on the phone. He said, under no condition will we bomb China. The next day they came over. They had a free thing.
Sure.
They came over, overran the Marines. It was a bloodbath. There was blood all over the snow. You could see it from 5 miles up.
Oh, my goodness.
Am I allowed to?
Oh, you can tell anything you want
Well, anyway,
about that.
we used to go back to Okinawa, 6.5 hours back.
Uh-huh.
Load up the bomb bays on the doors, with everything they had warm, socks, shoes, uniforms,
So,
and bring it back and drop it on the Marines. They were trying to get out of there. It was horrible,
really a bad
a
experience.
very bad experience.
So how long did that go on?
Went on till the Marines got far enough south that they could regroup, and then it got battling back and forth, but it pretty much where it started, on the 38th parallel.
Yes, okay.
All right? Then we were stopped flying. They were started at Pam and John. They were starting to talk about peace and everything else, which they're still doing. It's over 53 years now, and they're still talking. We never settled the war with Korea.
Did you stay there longer after the peace talks sort of
Spent
started?
about another 5 months sitting around not knowing what was going to happen.
But you were based in Okinawa.
I'm based in
And so
Okinawa.
you stayed there most of
Yeah.
the time? Or all of the time? Did you go to any other places or just,
On an R&R, we went to Japan, to Tokyo. But basically, we stayed there. Then when the typhoons came, we took the planes and flew over to Clark Field because the typhoon came from that area, from the Philippines, and then came up toward Okinawa. So we went around it and stayed over a day or two at Clark, which is now buried under a mountain.
oh, but you didn't have to, you were able to avoid the typhoons?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Well, you really had quite a time during those years, didn't you?
It wasn't years. It felt like years.
It was only months?
Months.
How long were you in Okinawa, did you say? About?
Maybe about 8, 9 months.
Well, that's quite a while considering what was going on. Were you recalled after the
Our replacement came with other planes, and we came back to the States.
Yes, okay.
And I had been corresponding with my wife, and when I got back after being in a combat tour, they told me I wouldn't have to worry about going overseas again. And they told me they were going to assign me to the 508th ARS, which is the 508th Air Rescue Squadron.
Okay.
Now, the
And
Air
whereabouts?
Rescue Squadron was part of Military Air Transport Service, and that was a nice, easy thing. It was out of the bombers. But instead, after I got married, came back from my honeymoon, I was stationed on the base in Georgia, Turner Air Force Base, and assigned to a tanker outfit, air refueling. They had converted the B-29s to tankers.
So now you've got another exciting job.
Another exciting job.
Tell me about that.
Well, one of the things that was bad about that they found in Korea was that the B-29s had to come all the way from Okinawa, all the way up, and then all the way back again. And it was just something that the Air Force always wanted to do, was have bombers that they could refuel. Then they could also bring up the fighters which protected the bombers and refuel them before they went into enemy territory and came back out. They could refuel them to go home. So this would, the tankers would make it possible to fly bombers on a shorter thing because they didn't have to worry about fuel. And the fighter planes didn't have to have the droppable tanks because they got to drop them when they went into combat anyway. This way they could refuel them right in thing. So I was in a new outfit. Something new was just beginning. And when we went out there, it was like mostly learning how to do it.
Tell me a little more about the process of refueling in the air.
That process, but the reason for refueling.
Yes.
When the fighter planes were armed, the amount of armament a fighter plane takes requires a tremendous amount of load lifting.
Yes.
So the only thing that you could give up, you have to give up the fuel.
Right.
So by taking off a couple of thousand pounds of fuel and adding on the armament, the plane was able to do it when it did its mission. It had more firepower.
Yes.
So what they used to do is station a tanker just at the several miles off the end of the runway. The fighter planes would take off with a full fire load, rockets and bombs, and they went straight up into a tanker. Once they were straight and level, they could carry the fuel.
All right.
Right. Then they would go out and do their whatever the escort or of the bombers or going strafing runs or whatever, and then they would go in to pick up a tanker and refuel for the way home. So you were constantly refueling. This way they didn't have to carry all those extra
weight.
tanks that they dropped from the wings.
When you first got into this, did they train you in doing this and how to do it?
I was trained on the radar and the electronic equipment on the B-29.
Yes, so that made it easier to learn the whatever you needed to know about the tankers?
What we had to do was learn how to rendezvous, to find a plane that needed fuel, home it in on our boom.
Yes.
Because a pilot that's flying a fighter plane has no room to carry navigation equipment.
Right.
So they were at the mercy of from tanker to tanker to tanker. But just think, we had one mission where we wanted to show, or the government wanted to show, that how mobile they were. They took a whole squadron of about 24 aircraft from Savannah, Georgia, the 509th, all the cooks, bakers, everybody that was involved in the thing, loaded them on carrier planes. The planes took off with a full armament, and they went all the way to Wake Island from Savannah, Georgia, from tanker to tanker to tanker. They struck their mission. It was just a simulated mission, and then they flew and landed in Okinawa. It was amazing. I mean, it could never be done before. This way, if somebody attacked us or for a defensive thing, the mobility was unbelievable.
What a difference, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, when they were having the fighting in Iraq, most of those planes, in fact, all those big bombers like the B-2s and the B-1s came from the United States, flew all the way to Iraq, dropped their bombs, and came all the way back and landed again here.
And they had tankers that were fueling them on the trip?
On the way.
Isn't that amazing?
When Gaddafi made his, I guess that was like about 8-10 years, maybe longer, Gaddafi was showing his strength and what he could do.
Yes.
And he was looking out at the bay, because the Navy had all the boats out there. But when they went to hit Gaddafi, they weren't allowed to fly over France and Italy. They came from England, the planes. They weren't allowed to fly over France and Italy because they didn't want to start up with Gaddafi.
Yeah.
So they flew out over the ocean, from refueling tanker to tanker to tanker, hit him from the back. Came up from the south, struck him and caught him completely by surprise.
Which was made possible by this mid-air fueling. Yes, so very good. Now, just to go back a little bit, you had some interesting story about Korea that I don't think you told us about.
There been one.
Well, tell us one.
Tell us one?
You were talking about the Marines and the bad situation.
I mentioned to you the fact that the planes, the heaters didn't work.
Yes.
And it was bitter cold. You really have no idea the cold. Because Siberia is Manchuria. Oh, and when we were by, we were 5 miles up over 35,000 feet. And right over the thing, you can imagine the cold. Sometimes the bomb bays, you had to crawl in the bomb bays and trigger the bombs out with a screwdriver because the shackles that held the bombs froze shut. So you had to go in there with a screwdriver and one by one loosen the bombs.
Oh,
but anyway, we were on one mission. It was one of the real, it was over Wonsan Harbor. I can remember it was just no enemy action at all. No fighter planes, nothing. And the bombardier's job was to count where the bomb, the firing was coming up, the anti-aircraft fire, so that the fighters can go in and knock it out. He said there was no fighter action, there was no searchlights, nothing. One of the planes said that they were hit, and they pulled the T-handles. Next to the navigator, there were 2 T-handles. 2 released the life rafts over the wing, and the other 2 released the bomb bay doors so they could open. And he got nervous and he pulled the wrong T-handles, and we left the life rafts over. There was hell to pay. Another time with the cold, in fact, it was on our crew. One of the gunners found a way of keeping warm. He put a can of tomato soup on the modulator, which is a high power unit, which gets very, very hot. Instead of using it like a campfire to warm your hands, he decided he would cook the soup. But nobody knew, and he forgot to put a hole in the top, and when the thing got hot, it exploded. And you can imagine on the Bombay, it sounded like the flak was coming through, and all of a sudden it was red all over everything. And I called it the pilot. He said, "Tell him I feel all right. I'm not hit, but there's something here that looks like blood." And it tasted really good.
Well, crazy things do happen, don't they?
I know.
Okay, then we'll go back to where you were doing the refueling. Did you tell us about how long you were in that position?
Oh, from the time I got back from Korea until I got released from active duty, and then eventually I got a discharge. from the
So
service.
where were you discharged from?
I was at Turner Air Force Base, Albany, Georgia.
Did you, what'd you do after that? Did you go to school or did you go to work?
By that time, my wife had a little girl, and I never finished college. And at that time, it was really bad. All the aircraft companies were out of business. Grumman was making canoes,
Oh, really?
and some of them were making house trailers. But the aircraft industry, even today, is a lot of the major companies are all gone. Well, really, I couldn't go back to engineering. I was almost 5 years in the service.
Yeah.
So I went the way my father went, and he was in garment trade. And thank goodness I liked it, because if I didn't, I would have been stuck horribly. But I finished off life as in the garment business.
Did you have a business there? Did your father have a business and work for someone?
No, we worked. We were in the very, very expensive clothing. And my father used to tell me that if you ever get in any industry, make sure you're working for the wealthy. They always have money.
I guess that's
And
true.
no matter how bad a depression is, the wealthy always have money. It might be a different class of people,
Yeah.
but it's somebody else there, that somebody has the money. And that was it. And I stayed in very, very expensive clothes.
Were these men's or women's clothes?
Women's.
Women's clothes.
But most of them had licensees. They manufactured men's clothes, but as a licensee.
And you worked at that are you still working at that?
They're still working
You
at that.
mentioned you
Over
were-
40 years.
You were going back and forth from
Yes,
here?
yes.
So what is your plan right now? You've been living in Leisure World part of the time.
Yes. Well, we have a very nice home in New York, and we have to go back now and do a little fixing up and everything and sell it, and then come out here and make it a permanent thing. That's my dream. This is a beautiful place.
Tell me about your own family. You said you had one daughter. Did you have other children?
Now I have 3 daughters.
3 daughters.
3 daughters, 7 grandchildren,
Uh-huh.
and little by one, they seem to be coming out here.
Well, that's nice, isn't it? What have you been, well, I know you've been awful busy because you're back and forth, and so have you stayed with any veterans organizations at all?
I would like to. I've had a difficulty finding a veterans organization. I know they're here, but you can't find them in a phone book. And when I went into the Historical Society, they had no record of veterans organizations.
Oh, really? Well, you've mentioned before that your Air Force people meet regularly. You said,
Yes.
Tell me about that.
The tanker outfit I was with when they disbanded, a couple of them had a collection of all the names, and they got in touch with all the people. And we meet every 2 years now.
every 2 years since
Yes.
since you were discharged, huh?
Well, not since I was discharged, since the outfit was disbanded.
Disbanded, okay. And you meet at Air Force bases?
Air Force bases, yes. They've been really nice to us. They give us all the facilities. They let us go on the aircraft and see what changes have been made. And it's been very interesting because usually things that have obsolescence, like the aircraft, are changed and changed and changed. But the boom we use is still basically the same boom that we were working with it 45 years ago.
Well, it must have been a very good one then.
I guess somebody did something right.
They didn't improve on it at all.
No, they improved on it.
Did they?
Yes, instead of at a sitting position at the boom, now you're laying down.
Oh.
And the aircraft, where we had 6 people to man the aircraft, now there's only 3. And they're terrific. I don't know if that's about a box about this big and about that high and about this thing have replaced me.
Has it replaced? Oh, wow.
It does all the navigation, it does all the rendezvous, it does everything.
Isn't that interesting? Yes. Well, it's good that you can keep up with that. I bet your interest is there, though, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes.
Very
It's
good.
nice to see the men I flew with. We were all in our 20s.
Yes.
We were in combat, And every 2 years when we come back again, you see the guy as he was 20 years ago, or when we were 20.
And you relive experiences.
I know.
Well, that's wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about this?
I can't think
I
of
think you've
anything.
covered a lot of it,
Yeah.
things, and I think you had a very interesting time when you were in service. Did you say you were in 5 years? Is that what you said, about
1 year,
5?
10 months, I think.
Okay.
Something like that.
That's a long time, and it was all pretty exciting, too.
It was.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.